And just remember, you can have all these great things if you sign up for the military and then immediately resign, and you can absolutely do that unless war were declared. Oh, war were declared. No, actually, we're not in a declared war, but that does not stop our president from running his mouth and saying that we are. So we're going to talk about everything that has happened in Iran since Saturday. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, definitely. So that's going to be the topic du jour today, and that's going to be the vast majority of what we talk about. So strap yourselves in, because I got a lot to say about this. You can tell.
That's beautiful, man.
In other news, if there is any other news, of course, this ties in with Iran, but the Senate attempted to actually repeal the War Powers Act and failed because they're Republicans and that's what they do, but we'll talk about that and what happened there and where that goes.
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
Stabbings and shootings across America, notable ones in Austin, Texas, and on the DC Beltway. Both are right now being commonly attributed to Islam and the Iranian war, so we're going to talk a bit about that and what's happening there. And, well, the Texas Senate is going to a runoff on the Republican side, and the Democrat has won handily over everybody else here. Are we going to get a statewide race that goes Democrat in Texas? Probably not, but given the fact that everyone's so divided on who they want to send to the Senate over there, it's possible that we do anyway. It is going to be all of this and more over here on Contemporary, so strap yourselves in, find a few friends, and seriously strap yourselves in because we're going on a ride this time. We'll talk more about how frustrated I am on the other side of the break. So yeah, strap yourselves in, find a few friends, get that live chat going because the more you chat, the more we get served out to the algorithm, and maybe you'll find a few people that disagree with you to go and chat with as well. And we will see you on the other side of the break. And a cloud appears above your head, a beam of light comes shining down on you, Aurora Borealis comes in view, and I ran so far away, I couldn't get away. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. You know, they call this song Magmore Caverns, which is fine because it was used in the caverns in Metroid Prime. But what it's actually attributed to and where it was originally written for was for the lower part of Norfair in Super Metroid. There was no subheading on that one. You could maybe call it Metroid 3, but yeah. Love the song too, by the way, so appreciative to hear it, and yes, when I played Prime for the first time, I was pleasantly surprised to hear that song again. Reused and remixed, but to hear that song again, used in the modern game. Good morning, my name is Jay Edgar. We have got, well, let's not beat around the bush here. We've got a lot of Iran news to talk about today because, well, It's on everybody's mind. It's in the air. It's in the atmosphere. A little bit of an interesting anecdote about this one because last Friday, Pom had an eye surgery. She is currently running around with still saying that she can't read a whole bunch of stuff. That's why she said that in the chat right there. But our surgeries and whatnot happen. We go like 3 hours to go get the surgery because the people there know what the hell they're doing. Unlike the people around where we choose to live. So we go when we have these surgeries and we drive like 3 hours to go and do that. On the drive last Friday, we had been talking before that drive about George Carlin and some of the classic stuff that he has done. So I put on Complaints and Grievances. For those of you who are familiar with Carlin, that was the special where George had written an entire special, was going to get ready to perform it on September 20th, 2001. And then because of what happened about a week and a half prior to his special, had to go back and rewrite the first 20 minutes of his special. And again, talking about non-cooperation with the federal government and making light and making fun of the fact that we were getting ready to go to war. This time in Afghanistan and Iraq. We listened to that on Friday. And then on Saturday morning, we got this shit. One of my coworkers is in the National Guard. I legitimately, when he came in, I said, I didn't actually think I was going to see you today. I figured that you would be on a plane to the Middle East by this point. And then he checked his phone for his deployment orders, which he did not have. But the literal first thing out of his mouth when I said this, oh shit, I didn't check. Yeah, anyway, so yeah, it's on everybody's mind right now. And it's the vast bulk of the show. I'm going to give a disclaimer before we get started. I feel it's fair because I get panned on X and Facebook and Instagram. On all these platforms as some sort of mindless MAGA tool who only sits and does exactly what Donald Trump says and believes everything that Donald Trump says. So, if you are coming here right now and you are hoping to see a drop to the knee suckfest of Donald Trump because you were told that this is a MAGA channel, usually I say come in and disagree with everybody. You're going to be very disappointed. My first position is anti-war. It has been going all the fucking way back to the Bush years. When I started to realize at the time that I had nothing in common with the progressives that were at the time taking over the Democrat Party, but I still hated the war in Iraq and everything that George W. Bush was putting us through. My position has not changed. Where I vote, the letter after the name of the people I vote for has changed. It's changed a couple times since then. But my first position has always and will continue to be anti-war. And what you are going to get out of the commentary on the news stories we're about to read is anti-war. I voted against Harris for anti-war purposes because I know her and Hillary. And yes, this would be going through, and we'd be doing the same thing if Harris and Hillary had been in office, possibly a little bit sooner. But this is not unique to the orange moron, as much as the progressives would love you to believe that right now. But every news story you're about to hear is going to have commentary with an anti-war twist to it. If that bothers you, well, I'd like you to tell me about it in the chat if it bothers you. It's not going to change my opinion. I don't care. But also understand the fact that you are probably going to be very, very upset with what I'm about to say. If you think that Donald Trump can do absolutely no wrong, you're going to be pretty upset with what I have to say. At this point, if you're a fucking Democrat, especially with all the stupid shit that they pulled in the Ukraine, getting right to the edge of putting boots on the ground to the extent of, I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. You're going to be pretty pissed by this stream. You've been warned. You know what's coming. You know what it is we're going to see. Let's get down and talk about what the hell is going on in the world, shall we? Before we do, go check out great programming such as Overruled and Crime Land with Katie Zed. I don't know if Stephen Ignoramus is still doing anything anymore. I know he's gone on to do his music. And I'm happy for him for doing his music. I think he does great with that. I'd be interested to see what he has to say about what's going on here because, well, a lot of our neocon minds convinced the evangelicals to go along with Afghanistan and Iraq because there was a certain Crusades element to this. We heard it all the way back in the early 2000s of, well, the Islam, it's the anti-Christianity. So as long as we're in there, we have to go and spread Christianity. Paid Over Holly says, come to us. NEZHNA, com, LFHTAO. That seems kind of body. I'm going to say, we don't ban here. We don't ban anybody here, but you can take 5 minutes and think about what you said. And let's go check the rest of the chat here. Palm is here. I can't read anything. The Damned Man has got the dinosaurs. That Junior's strapped in. I thought I saw Elaine in one of the live chats, but I don't see her in... Or maybe that was because the kick went back further. It is. Because we also haven't had Plus Fanning pop in yet. And yeah, usually when we do, he shows up there. So, yep, that's why we haven't seen Elaine yet today. I expect we're going to see Elaine here today, and I expect that she's going to pop in and expect that, well, I'm going to say a whole bunch of pro-Trump stuff. Jeep XLC says episode title made me chuckle. I was going for the chuckle. The Damned Man says, this time, you're on your own, America. Keep dragging us into troubles. Well, no, it kind of sounds like at least Canada is in support of us right now, which is a shock. It's really not a shock. And I would bet that the UK is going to follow in our footsteps. So, Damned Man, you might be out of luck on this one. Anyway, let's have a look at the Dow, shall we? Bring our news scene up and over here, and let's get started. The Dow spent the day mostly up yesterday. It tanked at the very beginning of trading, and then it jumped up throughout the day, ending at 495.56. It is already jumping back down, so we'll get a refresh on this, and we'll read a little bit of news off of this. I think a lot of what's going to be leading our markets right now and where they go is going to depend on gasoline, because that just got harder to get, which also in turn means diesel fuel is harder to get, which means that, yes, the price of your supply chain is going to go up, as it does often. Let's grab one from... Who's close? Who's close by? Let's grab one from Yahoo Finance. That sounds good. Stock market today, Dow and the S&P and the NASDAQ fall after Wall Street's bounce back. U.S. futures fell Thursday morning as Wall Street hoped to build a rebound session with the conflict in the Middle East holding focus. Which, by the way, if you have anything in defense stocks right now, you're probably doing real great. It's probably pretty awesome for you. Futures linked to the Dow Jones fell 0.4, while the NASDAQ contracts on the S&P both slipped 0.2. The muted overnight action followed a solid rally in the regular session. The Dow snapped a 3-day losing streak. The S&P and the NASDAQ both ended the day with gains. Major moves across all the markets continue to be driven by conflict in the Middle East as attacks between the US and Israel and Iran spread across the region. Yes, we are going into a regional war, by the way. I told Palm when I was getting dressed this morning. I think this is an appropriate t-shirt as I grab my man boobs to wear while we're sitting here talking about what could turn into World War III. Thursday marks the 6th day of violence with no immediate signs of abatement, but the New York Times, a former newspaper, has reported that Iran's leaders have reached out to Trump for discussion towards a ceasefire. Here's hoping. I will believe it when I see it, but here's hoping. Trump said on Wednesday the U.S. was doing very well on the war front, while the White House announced the American forces had struck more than 2,000 targets and were moving towards complete and total control of Iranian airspace. Those are words you love to hear when you're thinking to yourself, hey, we're actually going to go towards a ceasefire. As the 4th largest OPEC oil producer, the impact of Iran's reduced production capabilities is having a wide-ranging effects across commodities and stocks, with concerns that surging oil prices might force the Fed to evaluate interest rates in a volatile market. So, millennials, that's another excuse that you're not going to be able to buy a house. Aren't you fucking excited? Looking to oil, prices steadied after sharp gains earlier this week. Supply concerns eased after Trump said the U.S. will offer risk insurance and naval escorts for ships transiting the Strait of Hormuz. West Texas Intermediate futures traded around $76 a barrel, while Brent crude traded above $83, which is why your gas is hovering around $3 right now, if it's not over. On the economic calendar, Friday sees a highly anticipated monthly job report, offering investors another read on the health of the labor market. Earnings season, while slowed, continues with Costco and Marvel Technology releasing results after the close on Thursday. So, that is your finance report for the day. It does not look good, regretfully, but, you know, peace is good for business. The 44th rule of acquisition. Although the 43rd rule of acquisition is war is good for business. Alright, here is what we are here to talk about. I hope you're ready. I'm not ready. I thought we were done with this bullshit after we got Bush out of office. I don't know why I thought that, because Obama put more bombs into Libya than Bush put into Iraq, so I don't know why I thought that, but I legitimately thought that. US and Israel launch a massive attack on Iran. For those of you keeping score at home who have a deep biblical belief, a reminder that Iran is Persia, specifically mentioned in the book of Revelation and in Ezekiel, talking both about the end times, the end of the world. And it's widely believed that Gog and Magog are somewhere in the Eastern European region, with Gog likely being Russia and Magog being somewhere behind the former Iron Curtain, which, yes, that would include the Ukraine. So just keep all those things in mind as you try to go to sleep tonight. And maybe start saving some bottle caps. I have mine. You're gonna want the fucking things. This is from Nahal Tusi, Ben Johansson, Giselle Ruyi Ewing, and Jack Detch. The United States and Israel attacked Iran on Saturday, killing the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, in an astounding joint military operation that could dramatically shift the power dynamics in the Middle East. President Trump greenlit the strikes on the Islamic regime in Tehran, failed to meet his expectations in the nuclear negotiations. Iran quickly retaliated, firing missiles all across the region, hitting people who were their friends at one point, where the U.S. has numerous troops in an array of bases. Killing Khamenei was perhaps the biggest element of what could prove to be the most dangerous foreign policy gamble yet for a president. With an unusually muscular approach to the world, Trump announced on Truth Social that Khamenei, an aging cleric in his 80s, had died, calling him one of the most evil people in history. At least 7 other senior Iranian defense and intelligence officials were also killed, according to the Israeli Defense Forces, and we should definitely believe every word that they say. They don't have any sort of agenda. Right, Midget B? I know you're out there. Iran's governing system has ways to replace Khamenei. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But given that the U.S. and Israel continue to rain bombs on the country, and other top officials may have been killed, it's not clear how quickly the regime could move or whether a new supreme leader could exert authority over armed forces, such as Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Trump raised the stakes by calling on Iranians to seize the chance to overthrow the Islamist regime. And that seems to be right where we are going with this and where we've been going for this for the entire time. Now remember, we've actually talked about this before. You know, when we're sitting here trying to muscle in around the State of the Union and the ICE raids and everything else, there has been an open revolt in Iran since the beginning of this year. They say that all societies are 3 missed meals away from a revolution, and, well, we've got to the point where, yes, the Iranian people have missed about, I would say, 3 meals. Probably pretty close to this past January. And as we talk about this, a reminder again that one of the leading threats coming out of the White House was, oh, well, you better not turn your weapons on your people, because otherwise all hell will rain down on your country. Sorry, I don't have my voice all the way back yet. Let's throw a little bit of warm coffee down there, see if it fixes anything. And that seems to be one of the big catalysts of what that we've seen here over the past 6 days. Is the fact that, yes, the Iranian regime was turning weapons on the dissenters. I know there is a big talk about the 187 girls in the girls' school that got killed on a Saturday. That is all sorts of fog of war, but also under the fog of war is the fact that allegedly the Iranian government was killing like 50,000 of their people for trying to mount a revolution. So, who do you believe at this point? And oh yeah, we are going to be talking about the fog of war too. One of the stupidest arguments that we've seen on X is the fact of, we take what the media tells us as gospel, as long as it fits our preconceived narrative. The MAGA people tell us to believe that Iran fired a missile and it misfired and backfired and hit their own school, and our liberal left tells us that it totally came from Israel and the U.S. and they just murdered little girls. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here thinking this is all under the fog of war. We're not going to know about this for 30 years. What actually happened? It remained uncertain exactly how long Trump plans to pursue the strikes, and whether any type of de-escalation, including a return to diplomatic talks, was immediately or at all possible. The operation also comes months before the U.S. midterm election. The heavy and pinpoint bombing, however, will continue uninterrupted throughout the week or as long as necessary to achieve our objective of peace throughout the Middle East and indeed the world, Trump wrote on Truth Social. Others killed in the strikes include Ali Shamkhani, secretary of the country's Security Council and personal advisor to Khamenei, Mohammed Pakpour, the commander of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. That might have been a Freudian slip right there. and Iranian Defense Minister Aziz Nasirzadeh, according to Israeli Defense Forces. Again, definitely something that we should just believe without question, is everything that Israel tells us. The U.S. launched dozens of Tomahawks from warships at sea in the region as part of the operation, and American fighter planes are also involved, the U.S. official said, having been granted anonymity to discuss the strikes. Remember, anonymous sources means that this could actually be somebody in the high-up brass of the military, or it could be Chet the janitor. And he's on a condition of anonymity, so you'll never know. The campaign will likely be measured in days, not hours, the official added. Now, in that particular section of the Middle East that touches towards Asia, typically our strikes are measured in decades, not days. So just keep that in mind as we go forward. U.S. ground troops did not initially appear to be deployed inside of Iran, but countries throughout the region fear a major regional war could unfold as Iran's Islamist regime bites back and tries to reestablish some level of deterrence. Trump announced the operation in an 8-minute video posted to his Truth Social account Saturday. He said the strikes were part of a massive and ongoing effort, whose targets included Iranian missile sites and the country's navy. Reports from the region indicated a number of top Iranian political officials were also targeted. We're going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground, the president said. Which is funny because I was of the understanding we did that, last year. So I don't know where the new one came from. We're going to annihilate their navy. Which, they're actually doing a pretty good job of that. We're going to ensure the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region and the world. Damn Man brings up a good point. We gotta ask the Mogwai his opinion on this one because Mapstream, guess what? You're about to be educated. Iran. So far away. I couldn't get away. Open in maps. So, this is where we spent 20 years. This is another part that's a flashpoint that the U.S. is probably going to get involved in, by the way. This region over here. This is where Borat is from. But here is Iran. It runs basically the bridge from Asia to the Middle East and Asia Minor. This is where we overthrew the regime. And by the way, there's stuff happening in Lebanon too at this point. Just a reminder what's going on there. There's Israel. There's Saudi Arabia. Yemen, Oman. The United Arab Emirates, that's where Garfield kept trying to send Nirmal. That's where Abu Dhabi is. So yes, and Iran was raining missiles all over this direction today because of the Abraham Accords. The vast majority of this region right here is aligned with the U.S. But yes, the land bridge that goes between Asia and Asia Minor, that's Iran. That's Persia. The operation followed last June's war between Israel and Iran, which the U.S. joined towards the end by dropping massive bombs aimed at destroying Iran's nuclear infrastructure. At the time, Trump said the infrastructure had been obliterated. Which, yes, again, that's why. That's why I'm confused as to why we're doing this again. By the way, Senator Slotkin on why Dems need their own Project 2029, the conversation. This is who they're running for president, by the way, this coming year. It doesn't matter who primaries in and who wins the primary and who gets the most vote in the primary. The Democrats are going to run Alyssa Slotkin. Just so you know. She is positioning herself for it. Damned Man also says this might ruin people's travels plans for the F1 race in Saudi Arabia. It's possible. Trump said on Saturday the Iranians had attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach our American homeland. Boy, this sounds like Bush fucking rhetoric. Why does this sound so familiar? It's like WMDs all over again. And especially given the fact that a lot of the reason that we were starting this was all supposedly the Ayatollahs were turning the weapons on their people. Doesn't this sound like Iraq all over again to you guys? Following Trump's announcement, Netanyahu confirmed the joint operation to remove the existential threat posed by the terrorist regime in Iran in a video of his own posted to social media. The murderous terrorist regime must not be allowed to arm itself with nuclear weapons. That would enable it to threaten all of humanity. And by all of humanity, he means the mainland of Israel, Netanyahu said. Yeah, the title is great. I love the title. Both Netanyahu and Trump urged the Iranian people, many of whom oppose the Islamic clerics who have ruled the country for nearly a half century, to seize the moment to oust their leaders. So, go back and tell the people to have their revolution destabilize the region. This is sounding very Obama-esque as we go, folks. To the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight, the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. Wow, I still have some of the crap in my throat. I can't do Trump voice right now. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. Oh, excuse me. Oh. You want to do Trump voice, but you just got over a massive cold. And your throat's still raw from all the coughing and shit. Oh, excuse me. It'll be yours to take. This will probably be your only chance for generations. Just a sec. Sorry, that one was a bad one. Trump also urged members of Iran's armed forces to lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or in the alternative, face certain death, a message he repeated twice. Sure sounds an awful lot like we're going to have boots on the ground for this shit. Yeah, I might have to skip Trump voice. Thank you for that, damned man. Damned man is looking out for A. Shortly after Trump's announcements, the Israeli military said in a statement on X that it identified missiles launched from Iran towards Israel with defensive systems operating to intercept the threat. Iran's government vowed firm and decisive retaliation. In a statement, Iran's foreign ministry said the U.S.-Israeli attacks aimed at a range of targets and defensive infrastructure, as well as non-military sites and various sites across our country. It urged the UN to condemn the strikes and stressed that Iran had been engaged in diplomatic negotiations. The time has come to defend the homeland and confront the enemy's militarily assault. Just as we were prepared for negotiations, we are more than ready than ever to defend the essence of Iran, the foreign ministry said in a statement. Several U.S. embassies in the Middle East, including ones in Qatar, the UAE, and Bahrain, sent out alerts to their staff following the combat operation announcement urging them to shelter in place. Trump warned the U.S. service members could lose their lives as a result of the military operation, saying, "The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in a war," which we're not officially in a war right now. A reminder. Congress has to do that. But we're doing this for the future. It's unclear how many, if any, casualties there were. Trump faced little political blowback after the June operation against Iran. He also oversaw a successful operation to capture Maduro in January that has many inside the administration bullish on U.S. military capabilities. And at this point, again, I'll bring this up. The U.S. military has fantastic capabilities. We have the greatest capabilities. In fact, some may say we have the best capabilities. But with that being said, we're sitting here also at a point of the fact when we look at these things. We still don't need to be out into this region. We never have, we never will. We're doing the same thing as we did in the Bush years, all over again. I don't doubt the fact that if we do wind up being in an actual hot on-the-ground war, then the U.S. is going to bowl over the vast majority of the military and then spend the next 35 years fighting guerrillas. Not the beat-the-chest guerrillas, but the hidden warriors fighting and sleeper cells throughout Iran every time they get close to a building or a village. Iran, however, is a much larger and more complicated country than Venezuela or Cuba, another regime that Trump is currently pressuring. Iran's leadership structure has been headed by Khomeini, a cleric in his 80s. But the overall apparatus is large and deep, giggity. And there are succession plans for positions that are vacated. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is also well armed, and many of its leaders are driven by the Shiite Islamic religious fervor of clerics they report to. Still, the regime has faced mounting popular protests in recent years as U.S. and international sanctions, as well as its own economic malfeasance, have impoverished and isolated the country. There's your 3 meals. The damned man says, "This is an undocumented war." Nice. Trump has been ramping up to take action against Iran for months, unfurling one of the largest and most sustained military buildups around Iran since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. The Pentagon has ordered 2 aircraft carriers to the Middle East, along with an aerial refueling and surveillance aircraft. Dozens of F-35s, F-16s, F-16Es are shifted to air bases in the Middle East and the UK within range to strike Iran. The buildup also included several F-22s that were deployed during the Venezuela operation in January. So, long story short, which we read a lot more of this article than I thought we were going to, is that yes, it looks like we're not at a hot war with Iran right now, but both sides are sitting here saber-rattling over it. From CNBC, the U.S. insists the Iran conflict won't be a forever war. Experts beg to differ. I beg to differ. I've seen this shit before.
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
From Holly Elliott. Since the U.S. and Israel launched surprise strikes on Iran last weekend, Washington's been keen to stress the military action will be over in a matter of weeks, and it won't turn into a so-called forever war. Didn't we say that about the COVID, by the way?
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
Getting some mileage out of that button today. Holy shit. But experts say the U.S. could easily get bogged down in Operation Epic Fury if the Iranian regime proves more resilient than expected. What we're seeing is going to be more complicated than the White House may have hoped. Suzanne Maloney, Brookings Institute Vice President and Director of Foreign Policy, told CNBC on Tuesday. I want to say this. I do. If they manage to keep this within the span of a few weeks, this guy here is going to be a happy guy. The problem that I'm having with this, like I said, is they're pointing out the fact that, we do this every so often, and it turns into a forever thing every time we do. So the statistics are not on our side. But I'm not going to sit here and say absolutely has to be a forever war because I'm so black-pilled on the administration and the world that I believe that it has to be. If the experts are wrong, and I am wrong, I'll be the first one to come off and say I was wrong. But just like Detective Castleback said to his partner on Gone in 60 Seconds, the Bureau runs on statistics. And the statistics are not on our side at this point. Obviously, the start of the conflict appeared to be tremendously successful with the very quick announcement that Khamenei, the supreme leader, has been killed. That was a huge breakthrough on many respects, and the U.S. and Israel have been able to do immense damage to Iran's military capabilities. But the day after is going to be immensely complicated as well, and I'm not optimistic we're going to see a quick end to this conflict because the Iranians are escalating across the region, and that's their long-standing game plan. The long-standing game plan is to lure the rest of the region into a war that the U.S. is set to go back and defend and back everybody on because of the Abraham Accords, by the way. So, forever war or not, we'll see. Trump delivers a direct message to the Iranians after major combat operation targets the Ayatollah. I have some video on this one. Trump urged the great, proud people of Iran to overthrow the regime after the U.S. and Israel conducted joint strikes on Iran early Saturday morning. In an 8-minute address to the nation, Trump announced the major military operation against Iran, named Operation Epic Fury, and suggested that it would clear the way for Iranians to finally strip the power from their authoritarian government. Let's listen.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries. Among the regime's very first acts was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, holding dozens of American hostages for 444 days. In 1983, Iran's proxies carried out the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut that killed 241 American military personnel. In 2000, they knew and were probably involved with the attack on the USS Cole. Many died. Iranian forces killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. The regime's proxies have continued to launch countless attacks against American forces stationed in the Middle East in recent years, as well as U.S. naval and commercial vessels in international shipping lanes. It's been mass terror, and we're not going to put up with it any longer. From Lebanon to Yemen and Syria to Iraq, the regime has armed, trained, and funded terrorist militias that have soaked the earth with blood and guts. And it was Iran's proxy, Hamas, that launched the monstrous October 7th attacks on Israel, slaughtering more than 1,000 innocent people, including 46 Americans, while taking 12 of our citizens hostage. It was brutal, something like the world has never seen before. Iran is the world's #1 state sponsor of terror and just recently killed tens of thousands of its own citizens on the street as they protested. It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again, they can never have a nuclear weapon.
Why? And why is it our job to enforce that? Now, okay, I understand the fact that it's probably a bad idea for them to have that, but, you know, they have neighbors in the region to enforce that kind of thing. Why do we, in this country, have to go back over and enforce that level? Especially since they don't have the technology to deploy it. I also love the fact that he goes back and tries to tie this over to what happened in Israel as well. So, lots and lots of stuff that's moving off this one. Let's see, what else do we have up here? This is a live updater. We're getting rid of this one. This one's going away. From Mary Margaret Olahan over at the Daily Wire. How Trump's negotiators realized Iran was lying to stall for time. Again, we're moving into Bush territory here. Iran was using negotiations with the U.S. to stall for time as it stockpiled materials needed to reach weapons-grade enrichment level. Senior admin officials revealed this week, once Trump was made aware of the deception, he decided Iran was threatening the U.S. and launched Operation Epic Fury. Again, this sounds exactly like the bullshit that we were fed in 2002. And when inspectors go back, surprise, surprise, they're going to find no evidence of nuclear weapons, I would bet. You know, again, just exactly like what we saw in 2003. The president shared on Tuesday that negotiations made him believe Iran was going to attack first. I felt strongly about that, he emphasized. Asked whether Israel forced the hand of the U.S., he responded, "No, I might have forced their hand. We were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion they were going to attack first." The president's decision stemmed, at least in part, from Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner's time at the table with Iranian negotiators. Senior admin officials said on a call with reporters on Tuesday. Iranian negotiators, during several rounds of meetings, came to the Trump team with an agreement that allegedly addressed the needs of the Iranian people over the next decade. Because the agreement was needs-based, they asked only for enrichment that they might need over the next decade, tying the agreement to a program to have to build out more nuclear facilities. Trump's negotiators asked if they could take the agreement back to the U.S. so they could have a nuclear expert from the CIA, War Department, and State Department weigh in. They refused. So, and again, independent investigators, maybe. Let's do something like this. Again, let's not have a repeat of WMDs. Let's not do this shit again. Damn, man, it says Lunatics would be a good name for the workers at NASA. By the way, has anybody gone and checked on Ben Shapiro lately? Somebody down in Florida needs to go check on old Benny Boy. You can't jizz in your pants this much in 6 days and expect to still be hydrated. So somebody go down there, get him some water, make sure he's fine. From the Associated Press, Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, who led the Islamic Republic since '89, is dead at 86. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who assembled the theocratic power in Iran over the decades as its top leader and sought to turn it into a regional powerhouse, bringing it into confrontation with Israel and the U.S. over its nuclear program while crushing democracy protests, has been killed in U.S. and Israeli strikes. He was 86. Iranian state media reported the death early Sunday after a major attack launched by Israel and the U.S. Trump said hours earlier that Khamenei had been killed in the joint operation. Khamenei dramatically remolded the Islamic Republic since he took the reins after the death of Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini in '89. Khomeini was the fiery, charismatic ideologue who led the overthrow of the Shah and installed rule by Shiite Muslim clerics. Tasked with spreading religious purity, and fell to Khomeini, a stodgier figure with weaker religious credentials and a leaden demeanor, to turn that revolutionary vision into a state establishment. By the way, Khomeini was the one that was seen arguing with Ronald Reagan in their digital forums in the 1987, was it 87? Yeah, the 87 classic Back to the Future Part 2. See if I can find that. See if I can find video of that. The Cafe 80s Robot Waiter. I got a couple different ones we could watch for this one. Turn the music down.
Where it's always morning in America, even in the afternoon. Our special today is sweet grilled sushi.
You must have the Asian special.
You must have the
special.
Let's see if there's a better one for that. Slightly longer clip. Let's do this one.
where it's always morning in America, even in the afternoon. Our special today is mesquite grilled sushi.
You must have the hot
Cajun style.
pistachio.
Where do you go
You
buy
must have the hot pistachio.
Where do you go
You
buy
must have the hot pistachio.
Hey, guys, hey. All I want is a Pepsi.
Aim and fly!
I just noticed a moment ago. I never noticed this before, but they have to go back and edit this because there's a Pontiac dealer in the background. And by 2015, Pontiac was defunct. But you can see the logo for the Pontiac dealer right there.
Our special today is mesquite grilled sushi.
You must have the hot
Cajun style.
pistachio.
You must have the hot pistachio, though. And how do you, by the way, mesquite grill sushi? How does that work? I know that you can cook sushi, because I only eat the cooked rolls, but how do you do mesquite grilled sushi? Anyway, Khomeini ended up ruling far longer than Khomeini. He greatly expanded the Shiite clerical class and built the paramilitary Revolutionary Guard into the most important body underpinning his rule. The Guard became a military and business behemoth, the country's most elite force and the head of its ballistic missile arsenal, with hands across Iran's economic sectors. You know, like Lockheed Martin is in our economy. So, he gone. He dead. A Sky News Australia anchor went viral worldwide after closing a live broadcast with the farewell directed at Khomeini, delivered entirely in Persian. If anybody can can understand Persian, by the way, please feel free to translate. You must have the hot pistachio, by the way.
I want to conclude this editorial with this message to the late Supreme Leader. پدر سگ خاک به سرت بسوز تو جهنم. Rowan.
Couldn't have put it better myself, Rita. James, don't you agree? I
A little bit of gibberish
absolutely.
Persian.
I don't have anything to add to that. That's it.
I want to conclude this editorial with this message to the late...
Apparently, according to X, this translates to a message to the late Supreme Leader, you son of a bitch, burn in hell. I do not know if that is accurate or not, because I don't speak Persian. From NPC News. Who is said to be in charge in Iran now that the Khomeini is dead? A powerful hardline military corps. From Babek Degan Pichet. The U.S.-Israeli attack that ended Khomeini's iron-fisted rule of Iran also created a power vacuum in the Islamic Republic for the first time in decades. I guess if they want help as to what to do about that, they can go over and call their friends in Libya, and Qatar, and Yemen, by the way. They can call all those countries, because the U.S. destabilized them, too, for no good reason. Hang on, I love this song. My older daughter has a kalimba. I've wanted to learn how to play this on the kalimba since I found out what a kalimba was. There's your shiny thing moment for the day. While frontrunners to succeed Khomeini have emerged, including the assassinated Supreme Leader's second son, Mojtaba Khomeini, the real power is now likely to be in the hands of the heavily armed force that propped up Khomeini for decades, the IRGC, because of course it is. Why wouldn't we install a military dictatorship, intentionally or not? Even if they replace the Supreme Leader, what's left of the regime is the IRGC, and the IRGC is going to be the last vestige remaining of the regime until the regime is overhauled, either within itself or by external forces, said Afshin Ostovar, an Iran expert at the Naval Postgrad School in California, and an author of Vanguard of the Imam, a history of the Revolutionary Guards. So, we have no idea who's coming, but it's likely to be military rule. Much to the chagrin of the people who the Trump administration is telling to overthrow. Now, some of the memes that are coming out about this, of course. Gene Parmesan says, lawyer here, which he is absolutely not a lawyer. Under the Geneva Convention, religious leaders are protected persons. The supreme leader is an Ayatollah. Trump just committed a war crime and doesn't even know it yet. He's fucked. This is parody, by the way. Just so you know. Three-year Letterman says, as a licensed notary public, I confirm this is all correct. International law supersedes American law. Trump must be arrested. Because, well, that's what the parody accounts do. Over and over again. I'm going to skip this one. Politico reporters dissect the Iran war fallout, but they're pro-war. I don't care. I don't care what they have to say. I'm already dissecting it. And as you all know, because you watch this channel, I am right. Politico is wrong. From CBS News, Israel's president says it's about time that everyone tells Iran, guys, we're fed up, and lays out the goals for the war. Which is not supposed to be a war, remember. From Faris Tanyos, Israeli President Isaac Herzog said Wednesday Israel and the U.S. did not have much of a choice but to take action and strike Iran. During an interview with CBS Evening News, anchor Tony Dokupil, Herzog said there were concerns Iran was going to expand its weapons arsenal, and that the U.S. and Israel believed Iran had another new secret plan to develop a nuclear weapon. He also indicated Israel had intelligence showing Iran wants to expand its arsenal of long-range missiles from 2,000 to 20,000. I have yet to see any evidence that they have 2,000. But I have also seen and translated a tablet found in the highlands of Israel, dated back about 3,500 years ago, and it says, and I quote if you translate it, Persia is only 2 weeks away from having a nuclear weapon. 3,500 years ago, they knew that already. When you know they've invested all their nation's resources and money in creating havoc in the Middle East. Those are big words coming from Israel. Holy shit. Holy crap. Hey, knock knock, self-awareness, are you there? As you try to make peace with Muslim countries, Herzog said. When you know that they have another new secret plan to rush the bomb, you have to take action. Neither the US or Israel has provided evidence. Hold on. Hold on. Do we have a return of Ron Helton? I haven't seen Ron Helton. I was still living outside of Janesville the last time I saw Ron Helton in here. Welcome back, Ron Helton. Everybody give a big round of applause for Ron Helton. I'm glad to see you're alive. I was actually, when I hadn't seen you for a while, was a little bit worried. Because I don't know how old Ron Helton is. I know that he's up there a bit. I hoped he was still alive. I like Ron Helton. We had a bit of a speech disagreement over the blame the Jews people constantly in the chat during a gaming stream. And that's the last I heard from him. Ron Helton says, what the hell? No good reason. It was for the Greater Israel Project. Fake Jews, we fought World War II to stop illegal land grabs, and now we support it. This is nuts. R.I.P. James Reginato, Anzio. Let's see. Neither the U.S. or Israel has provided evidence to back up its claims on Iran planning to build a nuclear weapon. White House Special Envoy Steve Witkoff said Monday that prior to the strikes, Iranian negotiators claimed during talks that they had enough uranium to make 11 nuclear bombs. Iran stands with Iran. Our Navy needs to get the hell out of the Persian Gulf before they're sacrificed for the bloodlust animals. I don't stand with any of them. My first position is anti-war. That means if Israel doesn't get my support, neither does Iran. Nobody does. With the joint U.S.-Israeli airstrikes of Iran now on their 5th day and with no end in sight for the war, Herzog said that Israel is not calling for a ground invasion of the country. Let me be clear, I'm not calling on any boots on the ground. I'm not asking any American or anyone else, Herzog said. Asked whether it was Trump or Israeli leaders who ultimately made the decision to carry out the assault, Herzog said that Israel does not dictate to Trump anything. Midget B, are you there? I want to hear that. And Israel does not drag America into war, God forbid. Oh boy. Oh boy. The decision of his is out of clear considerations and professional decision-making process, Herzog said, adding that Israel was a factor because Israel is an ally. Our greatest ally, some might say. Regime change is not necessarily the goal of the war, in spite of the fact that they killed the supreme leader. But instead, what he described as Middle East change, which he explained as crippling Iran's ability to work towards a nuclear weapon and preventing it from being a state sponsor of terror around the world, including the support it provides for the military groups that serve as its proxies, Gaza-based Hamas, Lebanon-based Hezbollah, and Yemen-based Houthis. It's about time everyone tells Iran, guys, we're fed up, this has to change, Herzog said. One way or another. If it will lead to regime change, the more the better. So basically what Herzog is saying is, it's not our goal to change the regime, but, you know, let's go back and change the regime. There's your CPS News. Israel says it knocked out Iran's cyber warfare headquarters, which, again, we must believe everything that Israel tells us. There is no fog of war There is no fog of war when Israel tells us something. Abraham was not Israel. Jacob was Israel. Jacob's name was changed to Israel, and his 12 sons became the 12 tribes. After he kept Isaac's birthright from Esau. The Israel Defense Forces on Wednesday said it bombed a compound in Tehran, housing Iran's cyber warfare headquarters, but it's unclear whether the strike will significantly kneecap Iran's cyber attack capabilities. With modern networking, by the way, I don't believe that it's possible for there to be a cyber warfare headquarters anymore. Nor would I expect you to do something like that, because I think it would be stupid of you. For cyber warfare, you'd want that stretch across a bunch of laptops across the entire country. And if you're going to put it all into one building, you're just asking for your people to get killed and your program to be eliminated. Which is part of why I don't believe Israel in this one. Excuse me. According to a statement from the IDF, its forces on Wednesday carried out a wide-scale strike targeting a collection of military sites on the eastern edge of Tehran that allegedly housed the headquarters of the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The IDF claims the headquarters of the IRGC's Cyber and Electronic Headquarters and its Intelligence Directorate were among the military outposts hit by the strike. Ron says the last time Iran attacked another country was in the 1800s, so I wonder who the aggressor is here. It's actually known the U.S. and Israel carried out the strikes preemptively. So, yes, the U.S. and Israel are the aggressors in this one. Damn Man says these were the guys who put USBs they found on the ground in secure computers, so let's not be too sure of what they might do. That is fair. That is a fair assessment. It's unclear as to what extent these military sites were damaged or whether there were any casualties. Iran remains under an almost total internet blackout, which began on February 28th when the first U.S. and Israeli strikes began, limiting the flow of information coming out of Iran. Do you think Elon Musk has put Starlink over there yet? A spokesman for the IDF and the Israeli embassy in Washington did not respond to a request for comment. A spokesperson for the White House declined to comment on whether the U.S. was involved in the strikes and instead deferred to the U.S. Central Command, which did not respond to a request for comment. So, long story short, they have no idea. They don't know. What else do we have? Kurds backed by Mossad, CIA, could lead the next phase of the war in Iran. Oh, jeez. That headline right there just reads. Just absolutely reads like an anti-Semitic line that you would find on 4chan. From an account that's operated by the FBI to try to get more people that they can arrest. I can't believe that is a serious headline. Oh, man. I swear to God, Axios just copy-pasted 4chan for that. Quest Fanning says, isn't an assassination attempt on a U.S. president an act of war? Iran has tried on more than one president. It probably is at this point. From Barack Ravid and Mark Caputo over at Axios. Militants from several Kurdish Iranian factions are preparing for a possible ground offensive against Iran's regime in the northwestern part of the country, according to U.S. and Israeli officials and a senior official on one of the factions. A Kurdish ground offensive coordinated with the U.S.-Israeli bombing campaign against Tehran could increase pressure on the regime and encourage an internal rebellion that could spread to other parts of Iran. So again, the Trump admin and the Department of War takes a page out of the Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama State Department playbook and say, hey, we don't have to put boots on the ground if we get the people to go back and do it for us.
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
Like I said earlier, I'm getting some mileage out of that button today. Six days before the war began, 5 dissident Kurdish Iranian groups sheltering in Iraq announced the formation of coalition of political forces of Iranian Kurdistan to fight Iran. The Kurdish factions have thousands of soldiers along the Iran-Iraq border and control strategic areas. In recent weeks, the Kurdish Iranian faction sent hundreds of their members from the camp and the Iraqi side of the border to the Iranian side as part of a preparation for a possible attack against regime forces, a source close to one of the factions said. I do remember the threats to go on to Trump, but I don't remember if they actually got physically close enough to do something or not. But I do remember the attempt on Bush. Bush 1, yes. That is an actual thing that tracks. We have U.S. service members that are killed in this. 6 soldiers are reported to have been killed in the Iranian counterattacks. 4 died in a drone strike against a port in Kuwait, the military said. Let's read from NPC News from Moshe Gaines, Gordon Lebold, Courtney Kube, and Phil Helsel. The U.S. government has said 6 U.S. service members have been killed in the military operations that started early Saturday with U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran. Iran responded by launching missiles and drones in nearby countries. At least 5 of the 6, all of them Army reservists, died when a drone struck a port in Kuwait on Sunday, military officials said. They were identified as Captain Cody A. Cork, 35, Sergeant First Class Noah L. Tietjens, 42, Sergeant First Class Nicole M. Amor, 39, Specialist Declan J. Cody, 20, and Major Jeffrey O'Brien, 45. A 6th soldier, Chief Warrant Officer Robert Marzan, is believed to have died at the scene of the attack, the Defense Department said. So, all in one base. Cork was from Winter Haven, Florida. He enlisted in the National Guard in 2009 and was commissioned as an MP in the reserve in 2014. Yeah, this is just going to be a bit of a bio for all these people. And you do hate to see them. You hate to see that they had to lose their lives over something like this. But those are the 6 who were in Kuwait when all this went down. Lindsey Graham! The mothership of terrorism, sugar, is about to go down, Graham declares. Calls Trump the gold standard of foreign policy. Here's a hint about foreign policy. If Lindsey Graham is praising you, you're doing something wrong. One sec. The mothership of terrorism about to go down, sugar. Senator Lindsey Graham didn't mince words Saturday morning as U.S. and Israeli forces carried out a sweeping joint operation targeting Iranian military infrastructure. There's a new dawn coming in the Mideast, Graham said, casting strikes as more than retaliation, but a historic turning point. And what that actually means is that Lindsey Graham got a hard-on in his pants and then grabbed a young Senate page boy to go back and take care of himself. The South Carolina Republican called the operation one of the most significant things that's happened in my lifetime, adding that it may be the most significant thing that's happened in the Mideast in 1,000 years. Graham made the remarks during an appearance on Fox and Friends because, of course, he did. Saturday morning, he argued on dismantling Iran's military power could unblock a broader regional reset, building on the Abraham Accords brokered during Trump's first term, aka regime change. You know, clean up your own mess afterwards and then take credit for the fact that you cleaned up somebody else's mess.
But I want my own ass! I want my own ass!
Yeah, that's about how that goes. For years, Graham has labeled Iran the central destabilizing force in the region, which is hilarious because everybody knows that the U.S. is the central destabilizing force in the region, pointing to its financing and arming of proxy groups like Hezbollah and Hamas as the engine behind much of the Middle East bloodshed. But of course, those groups are only able to take power, again, once our country destabilized the regions they took power in. On Saturday, he went further, elevating Trump's approach above past GOP policy icons. Once again, if Lindsey Graham is telling you that you're doing something right, you did something wrong. What are we doing for time? I do have a hard out today, so I can go till about 10:15 and I cannot go a minute longer. CPS News, service members including Minnesota mom and an Iowa college student. This is the tug on your heartstrings so that you support the go to war with Iran message. On the naval side of things, U.S. sub sinks Iranian warship in Indian Ocean, Hegseth says. Pete Hegseth said an American submarine sank an Iranian warship in the Indian Ocean. He said the ship was sunk by a torpedo on Tuesday and that it died a quiet death. Because that's exactly what your Secretary of Defense should be saying about anything. Hegseth did not name the ship, but his announcement came after Sri Lankan officials said its Navy had responded to a distress call from an Iranian ship on Wednesday, naming it the Aris Dana, which had gone down about 40 kilometers, or 25 miles from its southern coastline. 80 bodies from the ship were found by rescuers, a Sri Lankan defense official told BBC Sinhala. Another 32 were rescued, Sri Lankan Navy said. A Navy spokesperson said some 180 people were believed to have been aboard the Iris Dana based on the ship's documentation. The survivors were seriously injured and had been taken to a hospital in the southern part of Gale. Foreign Affairs Minister Vijitha Herath said. Hegseth told a news conference on Wednesday the U.S. submarine had sunk an Iranian warship that thought it was safe in international waters. He claimed it was the first sinking of an enemy ship by a torpedo since World War II. While it's the first time since 1945 an American submarine has sunk an enemy ship this way, the UK and Pakistan have both sunk vessels using torpedoes since then. Crest Fanning says Lindsey Graham whistles when he farts. I will push back and argue against that and say there's no way that Lindsey Graham is that tight. Do with that information what you will. Video released by the Department of Defense shows a ship being struck, causing the stern to rise up before exploding. Langford. Is it Langford? Yes, that would be a senator in the state that I know that Ron Helton lives in. Alright, earlier Sri Lankan Navy spokesman Boudica Sampath rejected reports that the Iris Dana had been attacked by a submarine. He added that at the time rescue operations were launched, rescuers had not seen the vessel nor any other ships in the region, but saw oil patches and life rafts floating on the water. Well, they actually can't stop it because of the War Powers Act, so that's one thing to keep in mind. U.S. submarine sinks Iranian warship by torpedo in first since World War II. We already read about that. I can't find my cursor again. It's great. Hopefully in the budget this year. Another one on the same thing. We'll skip that one as well. I wanted to touch on this one here. Iran has launched missiles at Israel and U.S. bases as Israeli military begins new strikes in Lebanon. So I don't necessarily want to go over the bases Iran is striking, because we know about that already. But I do want to point out that, yes, now Israel is, they're not satisfied just stopping with, with going after Iran. Yes, they are now moving everything on into Lebanon as well. Let's get the map back out here. Open in maps. So here we have Lebanon, next to Syria, above Israel, which is known for operating some of the H names. or letting the H-names operate in their region. I believe it is Houthis up in Lebanon, sharing a border over with Israel. Right along a disputed border that they have with Syria right now. And Israel has not stopped, and they're putting strikes into there, which possibly means that we, as in the United States, will be starting strikes in Lebanon. Pretty sweet deal, huh? Iran launched new strikes against the Israel and the U.S. We know about that in Dubai. Israel announced multiple incoming strikes and missile sirens in Tel Aviv. Let's see. Neighboring countries brace for potential dangers after Iran's paramilitary Revolutionary Guard threatened them. Qatar's Interior Ministry, blah, 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 blah. We know that. I want to see what they're doing in Lebanon right now. Israel says its offensive had been planned for mid-year. Well, good, because we already know that we're going into this one. But they don't have anything on Lebanon right now, so... Yeah, everything else in this article we've read about already, except for the mid-year thing for Israel. But yes, it appears they're going into their neighbor. The U.S. says it will strike deeper into Iran, saying the war has only just begun. With video, let's read a little bit of this one, or listen to a little bit of this one.
Welcome to the News Hour. The U.S. Defense Secretary said today that the war with Iran has only just begun, and the war expanded once again. Iran, for the first time, fired a drone into NATO territory, and the U.S. used a torpedo fired by a submarine to sink a warship for the first time since World War II. The U.S. says it has struck more than 2,000 targets. Iran's health ministry says more than 920 people there have been killed. Our Nick Schifrin starts our coverage.
Today, Tehran woke to terrifying booms that engulfed the night sky in flames. By day, the capital's Revolutionary Square battered, many buildings broken, and structures shattered as rescue workers prayed for the dead. Monira Tehrani cannot believe what she's seen.
I hope this ends sooner, and so many people won't be killed anymore.
We are punching them while they're down, which is exactly how it should be.
In Washington, Pentagon leaders said U.S. strikes had so far focused on Iran's ballistic missile infrastructure and drones in Iran's west and northwest. And U.S. strikes will soon spread deeper into Iran now that the U.S. has more control over Iran's skies.
We will now begin to expand inland, striking progressively deeper into Iranian territory.
And the
So there's your announcement that this is the war. Let's see. Ron Helton says Ellison's going to acquire Warner Brothers. He already bought TikTok to stop the videos of the genocide of Gaza. Fanning says the War Powers Act is unconstitutional application by Congress. Never willing to take on that responsibility. That is a good point. Ron says they sent money to Israel, who turns around and bribes or blackmails the Congress. Ain't that a hoot? Quest Fanning says, per the Constitution, the President can engage in a police action for up to 90 days, as we can't be flat-footed were we to be attacked during that time. He needs to either convince Congress to and it goes on, it doesn't end. Let's see. Judge Napolitano made a good point. One of the few things Dems clapped for was his tough talk on Iran. So why didn't he ask for declaration of war? Probably because of his tacit acceptance that they could stop him, possibly. But yeah, we're just going to go deeper into Iran. I want to talk just a bit about the girls' school, and then we do have to actually start winding it down. So we're not going to get to the Clinton deposition, which I'm sure is what the Clintons want. We're not going to get to the Senate race. We'll talk maybe a bit about what's going on with that, just to give you an idea. And we're not going to get to the redistricting in New York and Virginia, because those are big things that are going to change the makeup of our Congress. Hopefully we can talk a bit about that next week, but I just want to talk a bit about this. Iran says a girls' school was hit by a deadly airstrike. Here's what we know. Mourners gathered in Manab on Tuesday for the funerals of victims of what Iranian authorities say was an airstrike at a school they have blamed on Israel and the U.S. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into this because I don't want to take this one and take a side on this one, especially. So on the first day of the bombing, Iran first came out and said that yes, there was a bombing on a girls' school in Manab, and it killed 87 girls and a bunch of teachers. Maybe as many as 175 people were killed on the midst of this one. And then very shortly after that, several other sources were saying that this was in fact not a U.S. strike on this school, and in fact this was an errant missile that Iran launched that misfired and came back down and landed on the school before it blew up. And like I said at the top of the show, what we have going on with us right now is a story that is very, very good propaganda-wise for both sides, depending on how you look at it. We see our right-wing and our MAGA friends coming out here and saying that they see the ark, they believe it, and they believe every source that says that it was Iran's own missile, even if it was an accident. And some of them are saying it goes as far as malice, that shot up the girls' school and killed all the girls. Meanwhile, our media that is fixated on the left wing of politics is 100% fixated on the fact that it was Israel and Donald Trump who personally guided the missile into the girls' school because Israel hates Muslims and Donald Trump hates women. So they held the joystick together and pointed it directly at the girls' school, making sure that they killed as many people as they humanly possibly could. Because that's just what they do, because they're evil. I'm going to be the only person that you hear, because this is such a partisan issue, that's even involving the libertarians at this point, because this is so partisan, I'm going to be the only person who comes out and tells you, I don't know, and you don't know either. You, just like most of the people that I described earlier, unless you explicitly say you don't know, are parroting a talking point that supports your political side in the girls' school manner. We do the same thing with the Ukraine and Russia right now, and have been doing so since the beginning. The whole situation is up under a fog of war. It's just like when that missile turned around and hit just inside of Poland, which would have brought a NATO country into the war in Europe. And then it turns out that there was some evidence that suggested it might have started in Kiev instead of Moscow. And we don't know the situation on that one either, but there's enough reasonable doubt that they quickly stopped talking about that. And as fast as they stop talking about it, I have a feeling that we have some sort of idea of what's happening there. But we'll never know for sure because it's all happening under the fog of war. What happened with this girls' school is under a fog of war. I would even go as far as to say that I don't know if it even happened or not. Because it's very convenient for the Iranians to have innocent girls who had nothing to do with the war and their blood on the hands of the U.S. and Israel. And definitely if the U.S. and Israel are killing the innocents directly by bombing a girls' school, then that's the propaganda the military can come out with and say, hey, do you really want to fight a revolution against us, or do you want us to protect you from the evil man in the West? Meanwhile, it is very, very advantageous if Iran misfired a missile, killed their own people, going along with the narrative, which is part of the reason we're in this whole situation to begin with, of Iran is killing its own people for political or personal gain. But it's all happening under the fog of war, and no, you don't know what happened. I can guarantee you don't know what happened. I analyze this crap every day. I don't know what happened. And we're going to see a lot more of this as we go. Run out says the Dems, rhinos, and most of these a-holes are doing this for Israel. Why? For money and blackmail? Because the dumbasses think they're doing the Lord's work. Yeah, I suggested at the beginning that part of what sold the original Afghanistan and Iraq invasion was a sort of crusade to spread Christianity across the Middle East. Withered Consignments, K7E, says, best viewers on streamboo.com, remove the space. Should we go to streamboo.com? Should we remove the space? You can take 10 minutes and think about what it is that you said. And done. "10 minutes, that's all we need." 10:06. Well, I got to everything that I really wanted to get to today. There were some other things that I wanted to touch on. There's some Tim Walz news, there's some redistricting news, but given the fact that I'm as deeply anti-war as I am, and the fact that I had to detour for the oldest daughter today, I think we're going to talk about the rest of this next week. Plus a lot of the other stuff that we have. But let's finish out with some things that I like and some things that I hate. Pretty short one today. We're not going to get too deep into this one. We're of course going to start with the rules of acquisition, as we always do. Or have always done since we went to a weekly show instead of a daily show. So let's bring down to where we left off. We're getting down there, guys. I guess for the 183rd rule of acquisition, we are going to take a popular American idiom and adapt it for the fact that it's being spoken by the Ferengi. When life hands you ungaberries, make detergent. Apparently, ungaberries are probably bitter. And you can't do anything with them. It's really hard to eat them as is, but you can turn around and make detergent out of them. And hey, if you make detergent out of them, then you have something you're going to make profit off of. This one was from Beta Canon, from a novel. I've not read the novel. The novel is Hollow Men. So, but it follows along the same thing about lemons and lemonade. You take what you've been given, you take it as you get it, and you make the best out of it. You make it into something better, something that's actually going to serve and service you. For the Ferengi, apparently it's unga berries turning into detergent. For us, we make lemonade out of lemons, and we take and make the best out of it. It is a good thing to live by, definitely, even if the translation gets lost across the galaxy. So, your rule of acquisition. Let's do a couple things that I hate, and a few things that we like. Now, I'm going to surprise a lot of people on the side that I take this. I'm going to surprise a lot of people on the side that I take on this because I'm actually going to come out and support a Clinton this time. That does not typically happen around here. When I explain it, you're going to understand why. But again, and this is also a situation where people like Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, people like that have come out and tried to make this as showing how terrible of a person Hillary Clinton is. Excuse me. An open secret says in 1975, Kathy Shelton was 12 years old. Thomas Alfred Taylor lured her into a car and brutally raped her. She was in a coma for 5 days and her fertility was destroyed. The pedophile's lawyer accused her of seeking older men, laughing at her in court, and her rapist only got a year in jail on a reduced fondling charge. Her lawyer's name? Hillary Clinton. Now, on the surface, on the face of this is terrible, and Thomas Alfred Taylor should have been fed into a wood chipper. Feet first, still alive. That's probably going to get me shut down on YouTube, but I don't care. I do feel strongly enough about that. Yes, that is something that 100% should have happened. And I hate the fact that this is the way that we have to go back and defend our system. Because we are guaranteed a few inalienable rights in our Constitution. Whether they help shitty, scummy people, or they help actual innocent people. This is the reason I hate this. They paint this as the fact that, this was some hotshot. Hillary totally believed in this person, and it was all good. Now, I don't remember if she was a public defender at this time, or if she was working with a firm. I believe she was working with a firm, but I've seen some reports that she was a public defender. Regardless of where she was working on the defense of the case. Everybody in this country is afforded due process of law, including the right to have an attorney present during questioning. Whether or not it was shitty and we have all the evidence in the world, cameras watching this dude brutally rape this girl. Whether or not we have any of this, everybody still has the right to a defense of some sort or another, whether it's public defense or private defense. But you don't have a good defense unless your lawyer is actually working with you, defending you. And you lose something you actually have a right to. As scummy as and shitty as it was, Thomas Alfred Taylor had the right to have a defense in the courtroom. A person who was actually working for him to make sure that justice was actually served instead of the book getting completely thrown at him with no chance to come back out and defend himself. I'm not defending what he did either, by the way. Like I said, at the end of 1 year, members of his family should have had the opportunity to, feet first, still alive, the dude. But he does still have the right to face down the American justice system with a person present on his side. Conservatives act like this is some sort of stupid gotcha. Whereas if the likes of, like, I would say Kamala Harris, a former prosecutor, were to turn on the MAGA people, people like that who are posting shit like this as a gotcha, would be turning around and begging to have somebody come back out and defend them. In a situation where it would be sociologically disadvantageous for somebody to come back out and represent them. What Taylor did was wrong. It was horrible. But he was innocent until proven guilty and had the right to have a lawyer present during questioning. And to have a lawyer represent his case in the defense. He had that right, whether you like it or not. He has that right. Come back out and hang me if you want. That's a hill I'm willing to die on right there. Alright, some other things that I hate. Scouting America agrees to massive changes after Pentagon threatened to end support. From Alex Nitzberg. Most of the changes that are going on in this I agree with. I don't like the fact that it took government pressure to go back and do this because, well, as most of you who are watching this know, I am fully against government pressure. Let's see. They said it was a mistake that they hit the school. That was the original story. But yet they claim they knew exactly where the leadership was going to take them. Isn't Hollow Man a poem? I'm not sure. Hard Drinking Lincoln. Dan Man says, do we have to support Clinton if it feels wrong? It felt very wrong to go make that rant that I just did, but it's still the right thing. You still get to have a lawyer represent you. Ron Elton says, when I resigned my commission, they asked me why. I told them they lied to us during the first Gulf War, and I would not stick around for the next war that was based on lies. I believe that. I've known you long enough, Ron Helton, I believe that story. Alright, let's talk about the Boy Scouts. Scouting America, the organization previously known as the Boy Scouts, has agreed to make several changes, according to Secretary of War Hegseth. First, Scouting America has agreed to comply immediately with the provisions of EO 14173. This includes reviewing and replacing politicized, divisive, and discriminatory language throughout the organization, programs, and all publications. No more DEI 0. Third, Scouting America will modify its policy to make clear that membership will be based solely on biosex at birth and not gender identity. That means any application will have only 2 sex designations, and the application must match the applicant's birth certificate. Scouting will also make clear that bio boys and girls will not be allowed to occupy or share intimate spaces together. Toilets, showers, tents, anything like that, Hegseth noted. And again, these are things that I agree with, especially having a daughter in Scouting of America. I don't like the fact that it took government pressure to go back and do this, because these are otherwise the right thing to do. Other things that I hate. Matt Walsh with an opinion piece saying, why are Republican senators sabotaging Trump? In an article that is telling Republican senators to end the filibuster because it's the only way to get the Trump agenda through. Knowing full well that when Democrats tried to end the filibuster, Matt Walsh was on the side that says, no, it's an enshrined institution and we need to keep it there for all times. It's another classic edition of my people are in power, so now I support the tyranny. I support the thing now that my people are in power, and it'll absolutely 100% never, ever, 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 ever come back to bite me in the ass. I didn't support the drug boats either, so don't point that finger at me. I agree with you on what you said and the commentary you made on that one. I was very public and open about that, actually. Fanning says, I remember that John Adams stepped forward to be the defense lawyer for the soldiers in the Boston Massacre. Capable defense is the only way to ensure that ensure a chance at justice. Absolutely. But no, I do not support the ending of the filibuster under any circumstances. No matter which Republican influencer tells you it's a good idea this time through. Alright, last one on things that I hate. Sheila of the Most High. Repeating an anonymous story. A woman made a full scene about her severe life-threatening gluten allergy, had me run to the kitchen 3 times. Sent her salad back because a crouton touched the rim. We sanitized, remade, reassured. We accommodated everything. An hour later, I ask if anyone wants dessert. She orders the tiramisu. I froze. Ma'am, that's entirely a sponge cake. It's full of gluten. She waves her hand. Oh, that's a little fine. I'm just trying to reduce bloating. I swear my chef's soul clocked out mid-shift. At that point, I just smiled and said, oh, I'm so sorry, but since you declared a life-threatening allergy, it's a massive liability for the restaurant to serve you the tiramisu. Your safety is our top priority. The look on her face was better than any tip. Here's what I hate about this. Now, most of you know, what happens to me is not life-threatening. But if I eat just a little bit of commercially made mayo, and I can eat homemade stuff, I will start throwing up all over the place. We think we have it narrowed down to a preservative that's in all the commercial made mayos because we don't use preservatives when we make it homemade, obviously. When I go to like a Red Robin or something and order a burger, because most of their burgers have mayo on it, I ask for it without the mayo. And a while ago they left the mayo on, and it was aioli actually, but same difference. They left the aioli on rather, and yeah, I had to go and make a run to the bathroom after I took a bite out of it. I remember I said to Pom, I said, hey, there's still aioli on this burger, guess how I know? Before I got up and ran myself to the bathroom. The reason that I say this too, and I put this comment into this, is like, this woman is very comfortable having a spectacle made out of herself for not being able to eat the gluten. Even though she can eat the gluten, she's just trying to... It's a dietary preference, it's not a life-threatening illness. And again, for me, it's not life-threatening either. But she had to go make a spectacle out of herself. For someone like me, who actually has an issue, and Pom actually does make a big spectacle out of it. Every single time we go into a restaurant and I order a burger that has mayo on it with the mayo left off. She makes it a big deal, talks about an allergy, which I hate that on its face, and that's the reason that I never asked for it as an allergy. Because, like, if they hear allergy, they have to go back, just like this chef said. Clean every single surface of the kitchen, sanitize everything, re-sanitize everything. On a busy night where I'm just trying to get a burger that happens to, on its original recipe, have aioli on it. And if there is mayo in the same room as me, I don't die like a peanut allergy does for people. It just it gives me an upset stomach, and it turns around and comes right back out. So yeah, for me, it's partially that I don't want to be a spectacle, and partially because, again, they don't have to go back and drop everything and screw up everything in the kitchen down while they're packed with a packed house. For me. For another person with an actual gluten intolerance allergy, yes, I understand that they have to go back and do that. So, the reason this is on things that I hate, and it's not because I hate what Palm does, because, I do understand she's looking out for me when she does it, but the fact that people who don't have any sort of intolerance go out here and can allow themselves to have a spectacle made out of themselves. Whereas me, I feel embarrassed to go back and do it. I don't know how people can do this to themselves. Can live like this. Can make people work in this extra hard way. Over something that's not even life-threatening to them. Where I feel like a major inconvenience if I just say, hey, I just wouldn't like mayo on something. Alright, let's do a couple things I like, and then we're out of here. Which is good, because I've really got to get out of here. So, typically, first thing we do on things that I like is what I'm watching on TV, which I started watching this week. School Spirits on Paramount Plus. Recommended to me numerous times. It's a Paramount Plus original. The roster looked good. The premise looked good. So the premise on this is a girl is dead. She's in limbo. She can only be at her school, and somehow, by some fluke accident, she can talk to one of the living people. Her spirit can. And she's trying to figure out how she died because she can't remember how she died. And she suspects that there's murder involved. I'm 3 episodes in. I'm kind of engrossed by the concept of it, because now I want to know how Maddie died. Because there are about 3 different directions it could go at this point. And if you have Paramount, I suggest you have a look at it. School Spirits. Let's watch the trailer.
I need to know what happened. Well, we have a new student with us today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Madison Nears. But everyone calls me Maddie.
Welcome to the Split River High Afterlife Support Group. Would you like to tell us a little about yourself?
How'd you die?
The police are considering this a missing person investigation.
What was her name again? Maggie somebody? It's Maddie.
They can't hear you.
Look at me. Nicole.
They can't see you.
Nothing ever changes here. It all just resets.
You try to leave campus, you just bounce right back to where you died.
They found a bunch of blood smeared all over the boiler room.
You shouldn't watch this.
I don't know who did this to me.
Stop! Stop!
Oh, you were murdered.
Welcome to the club.
Can we maybe try to raise our hands?
I need to know what happened.
Let the people in charge figure out what happened.
Wait, has somebody's plot thickened?
I wasn't ready to die. I have people who need me.
Wait up!
I don't know how I'm going to survive without her.
I just wish he knew I'm right here.
He's hiding something.
Did you hurt my daughter?
You might not like the answers to your questions.
Maybe it's a good thing you don't remember.
I found something. Twisted.
High school used to feel like an eternity, and now it actually is.
I did like that line. That was funny. Because of what high school was. Like I say, it's on Paramount Plus. I thought it was really good. And again, I'm only 2 episodes in, but definitely go give that one a look. School Spirits. And other things that I like. Sad things to watch. Country singer strives to save California with her new song. I do not believe that she will be successful. I'm glad that she's going to try. Lyndon Blake reporting over on the Daily Wire. Annie Bosco is a California native country singer whose latest hit is a plea to save her home state. The song is called Goodbye California, which she describes as the most beautiful state in the world, and while the title sounds like the closing of a chapter, she hopes her song brings about a welcome change to a place she says has rapidly declined since the pandemic. I'll give you a hint, it wasn't that great beforehand, but to somebody who's native, they still think it is. I remember that's why Brit got out of there, is because of the pandemic. That was the last straw for a lot of people. Bosco hails from Thousand Oaks and has fond memories of growing up on a farm surrounded by her siblings. Fresh air, hard work, and the endless miles of beauty are what she remembers most about where she was born and raised. Living in Nashville, the country music capital, she still associates the real cowboys of the world with the West, especially California, known for cattle farms and growing a large portion of the country's produce. Unfortunately, her home state is now associated with tremendous negativity, and she is addressing that through her lyrics. So, and that's one of the things that I actually enjoy about this, is the fact that, yes, instead of just running away, which, I mean, technically she did, but running away, giving up hope, which I know a lot of people did, she is staying and trying to make something back out of it. As I sit here and watch the progressive creep of Madison try to spread across the entire state of Wisconsin, I don't leave. Even as the cities become more and more progressive as they go, I don't leave. And when I did leave, I left for a place that's even more blue than even Wisconsin, because I sit here, I look at everything and say, you know, there's a lot of great farmland, there's a lot of great anti-government sentiment here, and if we all stick together, we can hold ourselves off from the onslaught of Madison. I don't want to give this place over to Madison just yet. So, it gives me hope. I don't know that California is going to be saved in my lifetime, but it gives me hope that somebody's trying. And, well, I am 15 minutes over when I said I had hard out for. So, let's throw some outro music up and let's head out of here for the day. All right, well, thank you, everybody. I will be spending most of the rest of my day on the road. I'm going to try to get the upload done before I leave, but I don't know if it's going to happen or not. I know it'll be on the audio platform, but we'll get the video upload up ready to go. Otherwise, we'll see you here next week. We'll talk more about the stabbings and the shootings. We'll talk probably more about what's happening in Iran at the time and what's happening on our side of the country. Hopefully, I was wrong about the days and not decades thing. Only time will tell, and we will see what happens with that. But thanks again. Take care. Have a wonderful day. We will see you here next time, next Thursday, bright and early, for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Take care. Have a wonderful week and a wonderful weekend. I love you all. Goodbye. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.